Yo guys, Theo here on Common Sense. Quite a nice and sunny day, but also quite cold, and I just don't feel like staring into a camera today. So instead, I collected some footage from today's upper body workout so I can just overlay this speaker on it. This kind of video feels a bit like a confession. What I'm about to talk about is not easy to talk about at all. The fact that I can still struggle quite a bit, go through a really difficult time, feel like shit, quite frankly, even after having overcome those daily panic attacks almost 7 years ago now, and leveling up in every way, even the way I feel and do with everything. Even so, life can still be quite fucking difficult at times, and it's not easy to talk about because there's still a part of me that thinks that I'm supposed to be this perfect hero figure, you know, the guy that overcame, the guy that's always doing and feeling great. And if I don't, it's like I'm letting you down. Like, how well was it even true? It was all a house of cards. There's no way it's possible for me either then. And also that fear that, you know, you just lose credibility if you're open with a thing like this. I know this is not really true, and this goes into something I'm about to talk about later, but I've seen over and over again that it is when I share this aspect of the holistic journey as well that's the most helpful to some people, that the person that did overcome and did level up in many ways still can struggle. So that means that if you're on your path and things are going well and suddenly you take a back step, there's nothing wrong with you, right? And so apart from just being a practice in vulnerability, I was going to say, because it's a challenge I've been giving myself for years now to be able to talk about these things. It's clearly been quite difficult for me, and it's one thing if you went through a rough patch to talk about it afterwards, and you're being all authentic and open and honest then, sure, but it's because you feel like you're talking about something in the past, and now I'm where I want to be again. Now it's easy, right? But I've challenged myself. I want to, because I think for many of us, our journeys are not linear. We're not feeling amazing all the time or completely bad all the time. Sometimes even through a positive period in your life, you can still have a lot of things come up that are quite difficult. And the message of the video here is really going to be that, you know, this is what the journey looks like. Healing, overcoming, moving forward in life. It's not about like completely fixing or curing, quote unquote, something. The core of who you are, the blocks you've been dealt, that's going to be the same. You're kind of going to have to face the same problems and mechanisms within you over and over and over. You just get a deeper understanding of yourself, you level up, you move on to better and better ways of dealing with life, okay? So let's start here. You know, I used to be that skinny fat, loser, hedonist, nihilist kind of guy, just escaping life through vices, partying, drinking, smoking weed, whatever else might appear in a party situation, you know, chasing girls, and when that didn't work out, porn, binge-watching TV series, and playing video games for hours on end, pretty much internet screen addiction, and just surrounding myself with people with a similar lifestyle or lack thereof. And when I describe all those things I used to do, I'm really describing my coping mechanisms to be able to deal with life at the time, right? And then this happened with the daily panic attacks that started, and what I did not understand at the time is that just having to put myself through that self-imposed exposure therapy that it was, you know, going on sick leave for halftime, so I get a relief, but still have this routine of going to work. And then there were some other situations where I had to face this also. I did not know myself as well at all back then, but now in hindsight, I know that having to do that made me have to face some of the biggest core wounds and fears that I have. The fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, the fear of looking weak, looking like a fucking freak, showing up and getting panic attacks in all these like mundane situations, you know. Having to go through that over and over again, I faced that fear of judgment and all those things, and you know, taught myself gradually that what I feared, it wasn't really true. That wasn't really the response I got from my surroundings. And also, because of daring to do what was so difficult for me, I gained a lot of self-love. I had always been looking to be validated from the outside, mainly through hooking up with girls, right? Now suddenly, I got the validation from the inside because I knew how much I was fighting for myself. But so, I came out on the other side there, decided to give fitness a go pretty much, get such a good response from it immediately, just improvement in the way I feel, and I know this is the path I'm on now. And after a few months is when I knew that this is something I would want to do professionally, because at the same time I figured some of these things out about my own psychology, right? Because I just had to see that, wow, some things about me that I thought were like a permanent thing, they weren't at all, because they feel like they're gone now, So, but first I started training and that just for myself, but getting such a good response from it and feeling that, man, I changed my life in this profound way I didn't even think was possible. People need to know. I need to bring what I've done to other people, right? But so for the first couple of years there, it's a bit naive, that I really thought I had been cured, quote unquote, from my past traumas and wounds. I went through that, and now I feel much better, and I'm dealing with life in a much better way. And that old stuff, it's just gone, And that's the tough lesson I've had to learn since then, that it doesn't really work that way. It's like think of a physical injury. It can heal up so that you seemingly that everything goes. Your knee, if you hurt your knee, but you've rehabbed it, and now you can go around life and think, you never have problems with your knee, but suddenly when something, that wasn't planned happened, you fall or something, now that old wound got ripped up and suddenly you have a knee problem again, Same thing happens with our emotional traumas, right? So a few times throughout these years, there was a first time where I got involved in a very difficult romantic situation, and I felt terrible during that time, and not at first, but because of some things that happened, and I wanted to blame circumstances that I felt the way I did, and don't get me wrong, it was very difficult, but I was in denial of the fact that because so many things about me that I thought I was over completely, they just came up, And it was actually at that point I realized that, I had this huge fear of abandonment and rejection, That fear that I had to face and sort of overcome in one area of my life, without really at that point understanding exactly what it was that I had overcome, But so gradually, to not talk too long, this is going to be quite a long video, I think, but I've had to accept and realize that I am, in fact, I was labeled ADHD as a kid, and I don't believe much in these diagnoses. I just don't like the concept of it. You're kind of pathologized, and you also you're kind of victimized. Like, you have this, now we have some shit to blame, as if there's a disease you have that just makes something wrong with you, instead of just fucking looking honestly at yourself exactly the way you are, completely, and take responsibility, do the best with what you've been dealt, And so it just came to me, because I'm going to tell you something that happened recently. I've been reflecting a lot, and I realized that I carry trauma, obviously, when I said I've gone through, it's not just romantic, there's been some other situation that really just ripped up old things, right? And I just had to realize that, I still carry a lot of trauma. I have a lot of wounds from the past. I just healed a lot of it and found way better mechanisms to deal with life, And it just came to me, a label I like much better than anything like ADHD is to say that I'm a highly functional traumatized individual, because it doesn't necessarily pathologize you. It's inclusive in a sense, It just means that, I am a person that's gone through, had a really tough childhood, and because of that's the unfortunate thing, because you pick up some bad mechanisms from childhood, you're going to have some bad experiences as an adult also, right? And I'm highly functional because I've now completely changed the way I go about things, And I go many times. That's the thing. That's what also is so difficult, again, with a video like this, that you want to show yourself at your best, because when I'm vibing at my highest, I feel like a fucking superhuman, right? Like, not only with the body I built and that, and what it looks like, Greek god look, you know, the way I just fucking feel, both physically, that I can have so much energy, I can do so much, I'm so strong, I have such endurance, and so on, you know, but also mentally and emotionally, you know. I so often find myself in this state of absolutely loving myself, and therefore, when you know, the way you feel about yourself, you project on the outside world. Then I love everyone else, also, right? And so that's the easy part. It's easy to be authentic and show off that, right? But I've realized that I still carry a lot of shame over these other aspects of me, that I can get highly anxious, you know, I can get very insecure again. I'm a very sensitive person. When I'm not at my best, I'm extremely sensitive to criticism, you know. I can be quite aggressive. I can explain myself, be defensive also. You know, many of these things, I realize that it's like I want to deny, like, no, I'm not like that. Because at certain times, I'm not, you know. When no old wounds are activated like that, you're not like that. And it's like you want to suppress your shadow. It's shadow work again, you know. And so since like a couple of years ago, I had a very difficult time in 2023, got triggered into oblivion and had such a dark year. But that was when I truly, really decided that, okay, I need to, like, really look into what's up with me and accept it, you know. Because the funny, or not so funny thing, but is that when you're in denial of, I had to watch, be aware that I get interrupted by some fucking update or something. It happens all the time on this phone. No, but when you're in denial of your weaknesses, your insecurities, your pain, your wounds, you know, that's when you actually identify with them, and because it's something you clearly see and experience, but you deny it, you know. In one level, that means a sort of admittance that, because, you know, you wouldn't feel this, like, disgust, like, no, this is not me. If it wasn't you, it would just be like, no, that's not me, you know. So when you're in denial of your wounds, your traumas, your pain, the ways you can be when you're hurting, you know, that's when you identify with it the most. But that's the thing, you aren't your trauma, you have trauma. And I've had to work really hard for certain things to accept myself as a highly functional, traumatized individual, you know, instead of feeling like I am just this. Because you aren't your trauma. It's like, you know, again with the analogy, if you hurt your knee or break your leg, you know, you aren't that leg. You aren't that pain. You have a broken leg that hurts, and now you have a limp. You have to use, you know, crutches or whatever. But it's not you. You know, that is a side note. Some people really start identifying with their physical injuries as well. You know, but yeah, I've had to. You know, and that's been the challenge. I want to talk about these things because I know that everyone. You cannot say that everyone is traumatized, because then it loses kind of its meaning. But everyone has some trauma, and especially just from society. It's not even just our caregivers and, you know, childhood, especially in this information society with the social media and all the messages that get thrown at us and the things we see, you know. All of us have, like, take something like productivity and success and happiness. The things we see on social media really makes many of us think that we are not doing well enough and we need to be better, and being productive, that's the only way we go, oh, why are they having such a good, I just see people having a good time, or I just see people that are super fit and stuff. So the point is that we all carry this shit that will get, like, activated at times, you know, and when we're in denial of it, it's gonna run us subconsciously also, even at times when we think we're doing better than we do. If you haven't embraced your shadow traits, your trauma, your you know, your weaknesses, your pain, now you cannot, because you're blind to it, you're not going to see the way it influences the way you go about your life, you know. No, but so it's been a huge challenge I've given myself, that yeah, I don't think it's easy to talk about at all. I feel I want to explain myself. No, see, I am the guy. I am jacked. Theo, I am confident. I feel great a lot of the time. you know, that's a part of you that wants to say, but it's like part of that person is also this this traumatized individual that's just highly functional, that is very sensitive, that easily can get, triggers on different levels, that's part of it. And it's just about looking at it honestly, finding, accepting yourself. You heal by just accepting yourself, but then finding better ways to go about it, And so why I'm thinking about, or why I'm doing this video now, is that last week I had a great year last year, and even then, I should say, even when I have a great year, I go through times when I'm just more irritable and stuff, which has to do with being a sensitive person, growing up in a really unsafe home. If I'm on edge, if I feel stressed, that little part gets, I feel attacked a lot, criticized a lot easily, and stuff like that. But so this year started great also, and last week I was just triggered in a way that I did not think could happen right now. Like, it doesn't matter about what, because it would be too long, but basically I have had a very familiar thing happen that really triggered intense anxiety, not like a panic attack, but really so anxious that I cannot think about anything else than my anxiety. Even almost routine things are almost difficult to do. Like, they're difficult, but I can do them. But like taking on anything new, being creative and stuff, is like impossible at a time like that. And part of this anxious feeling is this fear, because I've in a past version of myself have felt that kind of feeling for so long, and being stuck in a terrible feeling, So that's part of it too. And so I had pretty much like a day. I slept like shit. I could barely focus. I would say this is a thing with being highly functional too. Even at a time like this, even when I work with clients, like some I will even be open with that, I'm not having the best day right now. But some, where I just don't feel it's the timing, I can go out, I can work without anyone noticing, when I have like intense anxiety. But so I have a day when I'm really super anxious, but I managed to, but instead of escaping it, being present with myself, I managed to just instead of looping in, like trying to predict the future, which anxiety is, it's a sort of fear of the future, I managed to, by meditating, staying present with myself, find my way out of it, But then I had like a couple of days of hangover, It's another, like, I don't know the words to use for this. Like, anxiety, the way I see it, is like when you read, like, it's a nervous sort of feeling, Then I just had this, like, related feeling, but that doesn't like make you feel like stressed, no elevated heart rate or something. And it's still really uncomfortable. And again, it reminds me of something in the past, And the instinct, because I know how I would have dealt with it in the past, is to look for pretty much, alcohol or something like that, like take the edge of this terrible feeling, But I just don't do that anymore. And I also know that that's how you get stuck in uncomfortable feelings, by not leaning into them, being present with them, The example I've taken before, you have to see it as you're two people, sort of. You have the inner parent and the inner child. And what a child, when it's anxious or hurting, what does it want? It just kind of wants attention. When you see a kid get afraid or hurt themselves a bit, and they start crying, if you just pick them up, like, oh, where did it hurt? Quite soon they're fine and running around again. And so just imagine how you feel when you have a terrible feeling and you're kind of telling yourself that just fucking go away, like, just stop this, like, this, I just want to escape this, It's not a good signal. And if you numb yourself with a drug, for instance, you're just shoving it off until later. You have not dealt with it. So instead, I fixed it so that I had, lesser responsibilities, but I got my responsibilities like work and stuff out of the way. And then I just spent time with myself, meditating, but also going out in the forest for myself, and really just, this is also so interesting, guys. It's like you keep waking up and making things clearer and clearer to you. And this, that I went from really being in a good state, and that I could be so fucking triggered because no, never mind what it was, but it makes sense to have some kind of reaction to what happened, but just how strongly I reacted and how deeply I went into a fight or flight state because it became so obvious when I came out of it. Like, man, I really lost it there for a bit. And then I was happy that I dealt with it so soon, because I told you I've had that kind of feeling for like months on end before, and I dealt with it in a day and was left with these couple of days with a sort of hangover on it, but stayed present with it. And in the end I was actually really happy with myself, with how I dealt with it. That because there's again with being in denial, it's like you can wish that you never had to deal with something like that, but if you're to accept yourself as a highly functional traumatized individual, it's like, yeah, that's not going to happen because something like that hasn't happened in a long time for me, but you have to be prepared for that. And instead of feeling like that's some kind of loss or loss, very much a failure, it's more like, nah, it's a win, how much better I dealt with it, and that I actually used this experience to further understand myself. Yeah, well, there are many other things I could have talked about in this video, but pretty much what I want to come to here is that we're never, like, healing, it's not about like completely curing or taking something away. It's like a lot of it is going to go away if you go and most of the time too. It's like, how often does something come up, how much does it affect you, how do you deal with it, how fast, and so on. And I think like training is such an amazing, like for someone that has all these like traumas of not good enough, perfectionist, need to push 100%. I think like hypertrophy training is such a good, because that's also a fear I can have talking about something like this, that it's like, oh, so it's just a cope, the training. It's like, look man or woman, we're all coping with life. It's just how well do we do it, and the bodybuilding training, I've seen some like negative tendencies revealed in myself with the training, but again, I've realized it, I've integrated, I've changed how I go about things, and overwhelmingly it's been such a positive thing for me. And this is just a note I'll end on. Just imagine if you have that feeling of perfectionism and not good enough, and if you carry that sort of trauma, hypertrophy training is so great, because if you take a set to failure, the job is done. You could not have done more. If you go for, you cannot be, if you were thinking, I want to get 12 reps, for instance, but you fail on the 12th, that's this good kind of failure. It was just an estimate, but if you gave it your all, that's literally how, that's how you go about hypertrophy training. That means that, I did what I need to in order to make progress, and I just have to keep doing this every time I train. So it's a great mechanism for someone that really feels like they have to perform and they should be perfect, It's like, yeah, well, you have to perform to train, and perfect in the sense that, well, you have to push hard enough, but when you do, there's nothing like, oh, I should have done more, or this is not good enough. Like, it's like, no, if you failing is winning in hypertrophy training, it literally could not have been better. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to share this with you in hopes that it's helpful. Nothing wrong with you if you've been on a journey of self-development and sometimes find yourself struggling really hard. That's the thing with this life, guys. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be. And especially for us that choose to not hide and run from life and just get stuck stagnant, like the overwhelming majority of people do, and will have regrets at the end of their life. You're gonna have to make some really difficult choices and go through some really difficult things on the way, but it's always worth it. Like immediately now, I still, I am a little shell-shocked that I went through something like that, but I think you can hear in my energy, I'm feeling good, and I've been amazed at the insights I've had. It's in the end, that's also, again, there were so many things on my mind before doing this video, but suffering is the sole origin of consciousness. It's a saying from Buddhism, I think. And the point about that is that, a lot of people, when they just escape things enough, they numb themselves out enough with different kinds of vices and distract themselves with a phone and TV series or whatever it is. They're never going to get truly conscious to things. And that's why, in the end, someone like me, and perhaps you, is so fucking great at what I do, because I was shattered into pieces with that happened with the panic attacks. And when you've been shattered into pieces and have had to pick them up to build something better, you've had to become conscious to every little single piece that makes up a person. So that's a paradox with a person like me, that on the one hand I could be very sensitive to certain things, maybe more than other people, but because of my sensitivity I've discovered some things that I see that other people, so many other people struggle with, just on a different level. But so that therefore in the end I have both the answers for them, but I can also, because I am more conscious about my own weaknesses, I can, instead of react, I can respond, I can do better choices. So that's the two sides of the coin of being a sensitive person, being a traumatized person. The trauma, the pain, it made you become conscious. You had to experience some really tough things, but you're invited, you're called to build something better with it. Okay guys, I could go on for long, I think, but I think I got most of my thoughts out, so I hope this was helpful. Please like and comment. I'm very interested what came up for you when you listen to this. I do holistic bodybuilding coaching, getting jacked and stacked mentally, physically, spiritually, working on ourselves, body, mind and soul, becoming that person, the truest and best version of you that always keeps leveling up and has an amazing physique to show for it. So if you're interested, you can send me a DM on Instagram or email me. It's in the description below. I'll get back to you with my different programs. You can pick up my training book, everything training, philosophy, mindset related you need to become a self-reliant, jacked and stacked individual. And please subscribe for more content about fitness, fast losing weight, building muscle, self-improvement, stoicism, mental health, philosophy, spirituality, mindset. It is a mindset, guys. It's not easy, but you gotta do it. Peace.